Hello, YouTube and Wooper Club fans. Fruit Taco here, coach of the Route 1 Burbs, bringing you another feature match from WCL Season 13. This week, Week 3, we have two titans of the league going up against each other in the Newport Noctowls and the Buffalo Bouffalant. Both coaches historically very strong performers, and always a great time to see them go up against each other. And, well, I've got a special treat because the coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant, IllLogic, is actually here to go over the match with me. How's it going, man?
I'm doing outstanding. Really appreciate you having me on. It's nice to be a guest on one of these and not the host for other things on this Wooper Club channel. I do go over the power rankings each week with Steve, coach of the Waterdeep Wildfits. Be sure to check that out too.
Yeah, so you, like I said, this is a pretty historic matchup in the league usually. So tell me a little bit about kind of your the context of this match here.
Yeah, our matches have always been so fun. I think our first maiden league match here was in season 8, where I was actually his only loss all season. I went almost undefeated in the regular season, then swept through the playoffs as well. So I was able to get the best from the first time around. But then the next couple of times, it looks like it may have fallen into a little bit of bad luck. Jimmy obviously played very well, but a crucial burn on my Steelix the first time. And then the last time we faced was the final week of the regular season. The Noctowls got a critical hit on a turn that mattered not just to win the match, but also to boot me from the top seed of the regular season, which got him that spot instead. As a result, we are neck and neck going into this season for Steve's overall power rankings here for first overall. This has a lot of implications, not just for the regular season, but overall context. I've pretty much been the number one seed since winning seasons 2, 3, and 4. This is the best shot that Jimmy's had to overthrow me, so this is a point of pride for me to try and do well in this match.
Yeah, well, without further ado, let's jump into it because I know when you and I are both together, we sure have a lot to talk about. So let's just dive into the matchup. Okay, so here we have both teams. The Buffalo Bouffalant have a slight advantage in that they have a full 11 Mon roster compared to the Noctowls only having 10 at this point in this crazy auction season. But they've still got plenty of Mons to work with. They've got Reggie Alecki, who cannot Terra, Pyroar, Tauros Paldea, just the regular fighting one, Lokix, who cannot Terra, Mesprit, Houndstone, Vaporeon, Hisuian Gudra, who can't Terra, Ursa Luna, who can't Terra, and Lurantis. And they're going up against the Bouffalant's Hisuian Zoroark, who cannot Terra, Sandy Shocks, who cannot Terra, Hisuian Arcanine, who can't Terra, Honchkrow, Wo-Chien, Hisuian Braviary, Orthworm, Muck, Hippowdon, Crabominable, and Slowking, who cannot Terra. Looking at the speeds in this match, I'd say the Noctowls have the edge there. They've got, of course, the Regieleki, as well as Pyroar, Tauros, and Lokix outspeeding 9 of 11 Mons on the Bouffalant side. But I don't really expect all of those fast Mons to come for the Noctowls, so I think it could end up being pretty even in terms of speed. Going just over the Noctowls team, though, in this matchup, Ursaluna is, of course, crazy good. It's only dual resisted by Orthworm, but can pack the fighting coverage for it. Gudra absolutely goes in with Orthworm really being the only dragon resist aside from a Terra. Lurantis can pressure the bulky water and ground types as well, so they certainly have a lot of options to go after the Bouffalant. What are you scared of on the Noctowls team here, Nate?
Yeah, my couple of big issues were a couple of the types that I thought looked relatively spammable. The Ursuline and Gudra obviously share a fighting weakness as well as being spammable against quite a few other members of this team. Low kicks, Regieleki obviously don't appreciate that. So my main issues really were to break through some of those defensive pieces. Looking at that Vaporeon, really, it's not a fighting resist, but if you build that super physically bulky, that can be a huge issue. And if all my fighting coverage, for example, were taken care of, imagine being able to wish up the Gudra and Ursaluna back up to full. That sounds a little bit gross to me. Additionally, I think Jimmy kind of has to bring something like a Houndstone and or Mesprit there too as a fighting resist. And actually, those get a little bit tough or tricky to break through as well, especially if Jimmy can read the Zoroark Hisui that is coming. Those look like pretty key defensive members from that squad. I anticipated something like the Ursulina Gudra, of course, Vaporeon, probably the Houndstone, and then maybe something like low kicks, which, oh my goodness, low kicks offensive matchup in this looks just absolutely gross. And then probably something for hazards. I was leaning towards the Regieleki there with the massive speed. So we do have a couple ground types. We'll see about that.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. I think the interesting thing in this matchup I definitely want to point out is we know with the Noctowls kind of initial draft, there was definitely a fun trick room option they could go with there. They certainly have the Gudra and Ursaluna, which are terrifying under trick room. But you have that Crabominable, which actually underspeeds and could counter trick room. So were you thinking that they might bring trick room to this matchup or nah?
Actually, absolutely not. I actually have the two slowest mons there because Slow King also is even slower than that as well. And actually, as an offensive matchup, really not all that bad, especially with some of the interesting utility it gets. Slow King looked like a pretty decent bring for Abominable, of course, as well. Frankly, yes, Jimmy's team is slow, but I'm one of the few that would underspeed that. You talked about the speed tiers. Look at Honchkrow being the fourth fastest mon on my team. That's pretty slow. Trick Room, really not on my radar at this time.
Sure. Well, then, switching over to kind of what I see on your team, Arcanine, of course, looks nuts. It's super powerful. Nothing resists Flare, Blitz, and Head Smash. So if you get your predictions right, you're just going to be absolutely tearing through the team. I also like Orthworm here. Funny potential Terra Ghost could hard wall in Ursaluna that's just packing ground, normal, and fighting coverage. Crabominable, as I said, could counter Trick Room, but also just is very strong. And certainly with Terra can overcome some of its weaknesses to potentially put in some big work. Really, the only Pokemon on your team that I don't see a ton of value in are Honchkrow and maybe the Muck.
Yeah, the Honchkrow, I thought this could have been the Honchkrow week with spamability of something like Brave Bird, but then it gets a little bit tricky to get past something like the Gudra. Sucker Punch could have been a neat little priority for Regieleki, even in tricks like that, but I kind of agree. It's not really doing too much there. Muck also definitely agree there too. Thought maybe this could have been a time for it to come in to check the low kicks decently well at least, but really it's not doing all that much aside from that. A couple of things I thought are interesting. Ground looks like a pretty spammable type here too. Low kicks, obviously not switching in on that. Mesprit is the only levitator there, the only immunity, and Lurantis, there's a possibility, I suppose. But that would mean that something like Sandy Shocks, which is pretty fast in this matchup, has the ability to spam Earth Power pretty easily there too. Just looking for some powerful moves. Crabominable, obviously. It seems like I had memed it up at first, but I'm telling you, Crabominable, the power on this thing is actually unreal. It's actually, though, by the end, a little tough to find everything that I wanted, especially trying to make sure that, as I said, that Vaporeon's not getting off free wishes. And I think that really ended up shaping up what my team ended up becoming in the matchup.
Sure. Well, kind of my overall impression of these teams going against each other is this is really just going to be an absolute slugfest, I think. You've got Ursaluna on one side, Arcanine on the other, backed up by, the Gudra and then the Sandy Shocks. I think it's really going to come down to managing your defensive answers and really just, I think it just comes down to prep and play in the match. I really don't think that either of these teams has a huge advantage in the matchup here. I think it's really just going to be outplaying your opponent. What did you think about this kind of matchup overall?
Totally agree. Whenever I'd first seen the Noctowls team at the very beginning, I was admittedly a little bit down on it. Ursaluna seems like a fun Vaughn, but I wasn't really sure if this was going to be the right context to make it work. But seeing the Noctowls work through the first couple weeks, as we said, if we trusted anybody to make it work, the Noctowls have done so. So I'm very impressed by what they have put together. I do agree. It looks pretty even overall. I think we have a lot of cool answers to each other. Really interested to see what Jimmy brought and see how it matches up against what I ended up bringing.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, let's do just that and jump into the teams that actually ended up coming. All right, and we are starting things off with the Newport Noctowls, starting it off for them with Lurantis. We see it's coming with a defensive set, of course, that contrary ability. It's got a little bit of speed to speed creep that Crabominable, and really just some interesting mixed EVs here. Again, mostly bulky, bunch of HP, bunch of defense with that bold nature, then a little bit of special attack and a little bit of special defense. Don't know exactly what those calcs are for, but sure, why not? He's got the heavy-duty boots, which I think is interesting on a mon that doesn't really, interact with rocks that much, but it is his defogger, as we can see, so having that is nice, especially maybe for something like potential toxic spikes coming. It's running Leaf Storm, of course, boosting its special attack instead of lowering it with that contrary ability. Pollen Puff, of course, is going to hit Wo Chien. Defog, to get rid of hazards, and Synthesis, I think is pretty interesting. Of course, this is a defensive set. The Terra Water type is nice, resisting fire and ice type moves, but we don't see something like a Terra Blast, which could be used to kind of eat a Flare Blitz and then KO like the Arcanine. So a little bit interesting in that particular matchup, this moveset, but overall, pretty solid moveset overall. What do you think about this Lurantis here, Nate? I know you didn't think it was even necessarily coming.
Yeah, I thought for sure this would end up being the red Shieleki, but something had to come, I think, for potential toxic spikes. That seems like a pretty decent way to get through that Vaporeon that I had mentioned previously. Uh, at first glance, Leaf Storm may not look super spammable into my team, especially picking up the Muck that I did get to steal from Jimmy. Shout out to that. But when you look at it a little bit more, Leaf Storm building up in power could actually be pretty threatening overall, which is kind of neat. Also, like him stacking up some of these ground resists that I had mentioned previously could have been an issue. So getting another bulky grass type to stop something like Earthquake spam is actually pretty neat there too. Not a bad pick.
Yeah. So moving on, we have one of those scary attackers we'd mentioned, the Hisuian Gudra. You can see it's running a bulky special attacking set, max HP, max special attack, modest, Sap Sipper ability, and Assault Vest, boosting its already huge natural special defense to make this thing just a special wall and overall tanky monster. It's of course running Draco Meteor for huge damage, only resisted by the Orthworm, as we had previously mentioned. Ice Beam and Thunderbolt as coverage, and then Acid Spray. Very cool tech here. Acid Spray, I believe it's base 40 power, but 100% to lower the opponent's special defense by 2 stages. Very cool to be able to throw that on maybe a switch in or something trying to set up like Calm Minds or something and actually turn that matchup on its head. I do think it's interesting, though, that it doesn't have something like Flamethrower for the Orthworm or, Flash Cannon to cover a, like, Terra Fairy somewhere on your team. But really, good enough coverage overall, I think. What do you think about this set?
Yeah, Acid Spray's a little cute, I think, especially for the Slow King. Would be something that it might not be able to break through. But you did touch on how few Dragon Resists I already have, so I do agree. I think the Draco Meteor is really nice, but I would love to see it complemented by a couple other ideas there, too. Something like Earthquake for Arcanine, even, could have been really neat there. Flash Cannon in case of that Terra Fairy, or as you said, Flamethrower to cover the only Steel type, the only resist I have to it. Bolt Beam coverage, though, obviously really nice, so don't think I can complain too much. Assault Vest makes a lot of sense for something that might be spamming those moves, something like a Zoroark. I think it could have been potentially optimized a little bit, but these moves are all so good together. Bolt Beam is a classic for a reason. No real complaint.
Yeah, I guess kind of you mentioning some other coverage options or tech options. I think Dragon Tail also could have been pretty interesting to switch in on something, like Hisuian Braviary or something if it's trying to set up and you just Dragon Tail that on out of there and don't really care about it. But yeah, no. Overall, fine set, and we're moving on to the other terror of the team, Ursaluna. It's got that Flame Orb activating its Guts ability. You see, it's bulky offensive, a lot of HP, max attack, adamant, couple defensive EVs, and then just a little bit of speed to speed creep the Muck. And we see that specific HP investment to manage maximum survivability from those burn ticks. For moves, it's got bulk up and, well, then moves to basically hit everything. Facade, Headlong Rush, and Hammer Arm doing huge damage. Hammer Arm, very fun in that we'll see later he is actually bringing Trick Room, and Hammer Arm lowers your speed, which is an advantage in Trick Room, so that's very cool. Interesting. The only thing I can really say about this is that, having something like Crunch over Facade could hit a couple of extra things super effectively, like that Slow King, but I mean, really, with the power of this thing and Guts boosted Facade, you don't really need the extra coverage. You can just click that all day if you want. What do you think about Ursaluna here?
Yeah, just pretty much exactly everything you said there. Love the Hammer Arm pick over the standard Fire Punch. If you're really just trying to hit Orthworm, makes enough sense. and as you said too, would work under the Trick Room. Heard from Jimmy afterwards he was considering something like an Assault Vest for quite a while, which those are really the two main sets I was looking out for. Swapping over to this one at the last moment, try and get that little bit of extra power. But I'm already looking for a little bit of extra chip on there too. Could put it in range of a few things, so I'm interested to see if that bulk up ends up paying off or not.
Yeah. Then we have low kicks, something you said you were pretty scared of. We see right off the bat the protective pads, which is an interesting choice over something like heavy duty boots, which you'd expect to see on something like a bug type. But the protective pads are going to be protecting it from specifically Rocky Helmet, because I don't think you have Flame Body or anything on your team, so it's really just looking at protecting it from Rocky Helmet chip. This is, of course, an offensive set. Max attack adamant, but a lot of speed, outspeeding Honchkrow here. Jolly max speed could have outsped Arcanine, but we'll see with the moveset here, probably not intended as intended to kind of win that matchup per se. It's got an interesting moveset. It's got Swords Dance, U-Turn, First Impression, and Sucker Punch, which is a really interesting interaction of moves here. Its only free move, unconditional, is U-Turn, which, would get rid of any Swords Dance boosts you've set up. Sure, with Tinted Lens, the bug and dark coverage is going to hit everything hard enough, but I still think it's a really interesting set. I'm not sure kind of exactly how he planned to use it in the matchup. Doesn't have something like fighting coverage for the Orthworm or Arcanine, but with Tinted Lens, even resisted hits, are going to be hitting hard enough with a Sword Stance up. What do you make of this specific low kick set?
Yeah, I agree on all of that. Protective Pet's very interesting. Anticipating that I would use Helmet there, which would just kind of need. Thought maybe something like Silver Powder would have made a little bit of sense there too, especially with two bug moves on there. First Impression is just going to nuke a whole bunch of stuff, and also very much agree with the fighting coverage missing Axe Kick. It's tough to let that hit, of course, but potentially anticipating some protects on my side for the First Impression already. Anyways, boy, does that punish Axe Kick as well. Sword Stance with U-Turn and First Impression not being able to be boosted by Sword Stance, all very interesting, but honestly, just the bug moves with Tinted Lens and Adamant Nature with Max Attack, probably good enough to break through whatever it needs to anyways. Being able to spam a +2 U-Turn just by forcing a switch out seems pretty good to me.
Yeah. Moving on to Vaporeon, defensive wall here on the team. It's got leftovers with the Terra Ground to obviously eat an electric attack from something like the Sandy Shocks. You can see near max HP, near max defense with a bold nature, then 4 special defense EVs and 12 speed. That speed is to speed creep an uninvested Hisuian Braviary. We can see that, like I said earlier, that is a mon that can like to set up, and he's actually running Haze on this Vaporeon, adding some value to that speed creep there. We then have some pretty standard Surf, Wish, Protect on it. Otherwise, just pretty standard set here. And, I don't know what the calcs are, but probably going to take a Flare Blitz from an Arcanine pretty decently. What do you think of the Vaporeon here?
Extremely decently, I would say. This is another mon that's just making it tough for me to try out that Hisuian Braviary. Imagine trying to break through that plus the Assault Vest Gudra. Ugh, just a nightmare. And that's without special defense investment as well. Full Fizz Def is exactly what I expected here. Being able to tank close combats and such. Really do like Haze as the tech move there too. Seems like he's got a lot of anti-setup with the priority from low kicks being able to get past that. The Gudra with the Acid Spray and the Haze here from Vaporeon all kind of leaning towards starting to see the direction we're getting towards stop the setup, and then probably the last mon setting up the offensive part of the team.
And moving on to the last Pokemon on the team, we have Mesprit, probably the most interesting Pokemon here, I'd say. We can see we're starting off with the Mental Herb to block Taunt, which we can see this is pretty much a full support set. Terra Dark, which could let it eat a Ghost or Dark type move, but of course, as I said, this is pretty much full support. You probably don't want to Terra this Mon. As far as the spread goes, also pretty interesting. Max HP, a bit of special defense, and then a lot of speed and jolly nature. That speed is, again, going to outspeed Honchkrow and a max speed Wo Chien. But I do think the speed investment is odd because, I mean, this thing really only cares about setting up Trick Room. Of course, you have hazards, but Trick Room into Healing Wish is a very, very cool combo, being able to set up that Trick Room and then, either you get KO'd under the Trick Room by the opponent and get to bring in one of your scary Trick Room mons, or you KO yourself with that Healing Wish, fully healing either, a wall like Vaporeon or a threat like the Gudra or the Ursaluna. Uh, I think it's going to be interesting whether this set pays off because, like I said, doesn't really have any options as far as offense on this thing goes. So if you can kind of figure that out in the match, this could potentially just invite some free switches for you, and then that might allow you to take advantage of him taking the time to set up Trick Room. What do you think about this very kind of all-in on Trick Room set here on the Mesprit?
This was not what I was expecting when I said a fighting resist could come, because boy, is this not too much of anything back to Gerbominable. Thought at least a psychic or something would come on it. Yeah, this is definitely all in on the Trick Room. Having a ton of speed on there, kind of interesting to get off the slow U-turn. Is a little bit interesting there, though. Of course, Healing Wish is a great option. I think at the very least, being able to set up Trick Room, get off rocks for at least one go around, and hope that Ursaluna can claim maybe 2, 3 KOs is a pretty decent option there already. Not sure if that's going to be the play. Again, I have a very slow team. I wonder, though, how much I am prepared for Trick Room. Obviously, not very much, but just the natural goings of how slow my team is may already off put that. Very curious to see what this ends up doing.
Yeah, I think it'll also be interesting to see how he tries to use Trick Room because you've kind of got with this team two different options. You can either go for it early and try to use Ursaluna to break through your team and then clean up with something like the low kicks or the Gudra, or you do the reverse of that and you save Trick Room for the end and try to get off a sweep at the end after already finding that chip on your bulk. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how he chooses to employ that in the match, but let's move on to your team and see exactly what you're bringing and if you've got anything that could counter that. All right, and here we have what you are bringing, the Bouffalant team here, and I'm just going to hand it off to you right away because I'm sure you know more about this team than I do.
Sure. And I first off, the Hisuian Zoroark rocking a choice specs with enough speed, of course, to outspeed the next highest there, the Pyroar, which is actually a little bit concerned about. Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Grass Knot, of course, are all obvious there. The Shadow Ball, very spammable overall. Flamethrower to hit a couple of those key targets. Grass type, they will be able to hit the Gudra a little bit there. Grass Knot, boy, go look at the damage calcs of Grass Knot against the Ursaluna and be amazed at how heavy that is. But if you're already astounded as how heavy that is, wait to see how heavy the Gudra is. Base 120 low kick there too, even without any attack investment, just making it not a minus attack nature. And this is actually a 2-hit KO on the Gudra Hisui on a choice spec set. Yeah, we're rocking a physical move because that Assault Vest you can see coming from a mile away there. Obviously, we can't exactly change up the move selection with choice specs, but one good prediction, and we are in business. I feel like this is more of a mid-game breaker, get 1 or 2 pieces down, have this break that 1 or 2 extra pieces there too, and we're in business. Really felt like this needed to come for those fighting resist. Shadow Ball being able to break apart the Houndstone and the Mesprit seemed very important to me to get 1 or 2 of those pieces down as soon as I possibly could. Would have loved to find room for something like maybe Trick for the Vaporeon, because that does kind of wall this pretty well, especially because I couldn't find room for U-turn. That's the idea behind this Zoroark. What do you think there, Michael?
I think it's great. As far as we're talking about the Vaporeon, I think the Grass Knot calcs onto physically defensive Vaporeon like you were expecting aren't bad either. I think I had seen that was doing like 40% or something, so good damage there anyways. And certainly with some extra chip could prevent that from switching in. I really love this set. It's very funny seeing two weight-based moves on it. Just the fact that they can both be really good in this match is a fun coincidence. And then, yeah, Shadow Ball, super spammable if the Ursaluna, is used to break early and goes down in kind of the first half of the match. And if he doesn't, bring the Pyroar, as well as, like you said, being a good answer to those fighting checks. And then Flamethrower, good coverage. great set overall.
And Flamethrower is, of course, good coverage because we're also bringing the Fire type. The Hisuian Arcanine is the next one, and if one choice was good, then two choice items have to be better. Look at that choice band: Rockhead, Adamant, Max Attack, Flare Blitz, Head Smash without recoil. Give me that all day long for sure. The calcs on those are absolutely absurd. Head Smash is actually able to 2-hit KO the Vaporeon defensively, which is insane. Extreme Speed, fantastic for getting that priority. Not going to outspeed the low kicks as first impression because that actually I don't have any speed on this. We'll get to that in a moment. There, I have extreme speed, obviously really nice for finishing off weakened targets or getting a little bit of guaranteed chip onto something. In close combat, the first of the fighting type offense that I had mentioned looked so spammable before. Once one of those couple of bonds go down, close combat becomes so easy to spam without too many downsides. Obviously, lower defenses, but come on, we're not really taking any downsides here with the Arcanine. Again, the EVs may look a little bit weird. Max Attack Adamant, sure, I want as much power and damage on this as possible, but for speed, didn't really see anything that I wanted or needed to outspeed at these mid-range speed tiers. Outspeeding Mesprit, not too high of priority if I really needed to. The Vaporeon I didn't think would be putting on any speed or anything, so I didn't really feel the need to do that. And with max HP, which is kind of the default for whenever you're not really sure what else to do with that, didn't feel like it was really enough one way or another. So I ended up going max special defense. This was to better tank Regieleki hits, to better tank non-earthquake hits from the Gudra, and be able to actually switch this in once or twice onto a couple of things, maybe as an emergency check to some of that special type offense. A lot of the physical offense that Jimmy could have brought from things like the Tauros Paldea, obviously Earthquake from the Ursaluna, and things like that, I wasn't going to be tanking anyways with Arcanine. So I figured let's get a little bit more special bulk on there. Really, the only thing we're missing out on is probably a little bit of low kicks damage. But otherwise, getting some special bulk on there could be a little bit interesting to tank one hit and then fire back with one of these super powerful moves. Second choice item, Michael, what do you think?
I mean, I think this set is pretty dang great. The banded adamant max attack, it just puts out so much damage, and the fact that you have Rockhead preventing all of that recoil, geez, just what an absolute monster. Like I said earlier, I think, if you get your predictions right with this thing, it's claiming a KO every time it comes in because nothing switches into that full move set, and if the Noctowl switch in the wrong mon, it's just gonna be gone. I do think what you say about that special defense investment makes sense. I like it, especially in terms of you said something like the Aleki, and it makes total sense. A lot of the physical mons are gonna be carrying something like an Earthquake, which you're 4 times weak to. Any defense investment probably isn't gonna save you. So just going for the more kind of corner cases of, well, maybe there's a special attacker you need to switch into, or maybe you just lets you live an extra attack from something like, I don't know, a Scarf Mesprit or something, and then you just can keep plowing through the team with Flare Blitzes and Head Smashes. Great set overall.
Yeah, really just need a little bit of chip on some of these mons. I think the next couple mons are going to help supply that. Next up is the Sandy Shocks. We're rocking soft sand for quite a while. I wanted to put something like choice specs on this as well, but really didn't see, honestly, all that many moves that made a lot of sense to me. Even some fringe options like discharge not really making much sense. So we're going with soft sand here. Timid nature to be able to outspeed the base of 100 here on Jimmy's team. But really, the main move we're looking at, of course, with soft sand is going to be Earth Power. I mentioned how spammable that looked overall. Earth Power is doing a ton of damage to just about anything that isn't immune to it. Volt Switch to get out of there makes a lot of sense. Thunder Wave is a niche little option just in case need to slow something down for one of my other slower threats here, let's say, and we'll talk about later. And Stealth Rock, of course, just to get something up. This is my main answer to the Regieleki. Obviously, Terror Blast, maybe Specs, isn't going to be doing damage that I would like to see, especially without Hippowdon here. This is my only electric immunity, but Sandy Shocks is here to be able to help fulfill that role. And the sooner we can force out something like the Aleki, which was the original plan to be able to see as the hazard remover, the better we can do. And again, being able to spam these two stab moves, really, really fun to do. Pretty straightforward set though, Michael. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I've got a couple, kind of suspicions about is the Thunder Wave. I It is nice, slowing down something like Mesprit or the low kicks or Tauros or something. But just with the Regieleki being immune, the Ursaluna being ground type, of course, him having some pretty slow stuff like the Gudra and the Vaporeon, which probably don't hate being paralyzed. I'm just wondering how many situations you'll find yourself in where that's actually the first of the four moves that you feel like clicking. But Sandy Shocks doesn't have, the biggest move pool, so I don't think you're really losing out on anything there. Earth Power, like you said, is your kind of going to be your go-to here. So you don't really need something like Thunderbolt for the Vaporeon because you're just going to be Volt switching on that anyways. So I think overall, nothing really wrong with this set here.
I probably could have brought Hyper Beam, brought that week too, but did not end up clicking that. Could have been a neat option. And next for the lower tier monster, the ones that are able to Terra, this is probably a weird looking Wo-Chen being able to, not do that much with the helmet off the rip there. It is Rocky Helmet. Of course, a pretty standard moveset here. We've got the knockoff and Ruination. I really love this combination, be able to get rid of some of those items, maybe some choice items. Imagine Ursaluna coming in and its Flame Orb is knocked off before it can do anything. Ruination to almost ensure we get some damage off, aside from Wish from Vaporeon, which is, of course, the number one reason you have Taunt there, just in case Vaporeon is trying to do anything on us. And Leech Seed for the last slot. A little bit rough because the Gudra can switch into that, but boy, would I love to get rid of its Assault Vest or take it down to half health as well, so that's not bad there either. We've got max HP and max defense, but that doesn't really do much for us with the Rocky Helmet at this point. But if that low kicks is coming, which I do anticipate to do so, this is probably the dedicated Terra Mon, and with Terra Fairy, we're actually resisting everything that low kicks could possibly show up. Yeah, our Bug Dark type is going to be the low kicks check potentially here. More likely than not, this is what I anticipate to use my Terra on relatively early to make sure I can actually switch into things like First Impression, and then you start spamming things like Knockoff, Ruination, and if Vaporeon wants to come in to heal things up, really can't because of Taunt. Maybe weird to have something so dedicated in a defensive way, Terra-wise, and we do have a couple other interesting options, but frankly, I didn't see that much else on my team that I wanted to come in and tank hits from the low kick. Something like Hippowdon potentially could have pulled double duty with the Regieleki and this with the helmet, but with that as well as the Slowking, I didn't end up bringing them despite just picking them up because I hated how passive they were against something like Vaporeon, whereas Taunt on this really sealed the deal for me bringing the Wo-Chen. A little bit convoluted potentially, but what do you think, Michael?
I mean, I think it's pretty well thought out. The thing that jumped out to me was, no offensive grass coverage as far as something like the Ursaluna or the Vaporeon, but working with Ting Lu last season, Ruination is just such a good move that honestly, you're happy to just click that and knock off pretty much all the time. And sure, maybe, you'd get a little more use out of, something like a Giga Drain in a specific matchup, but it's never going to be that much better than just clicking one of the dark moves. Most interesting thing, I think, is the Terra, like you said, making it a surprise low kicks answer. But also, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword doing that, because you lose your only water resist, as far as that Vaporeon being bulky made, just getting off a couple of surfs here and there against some key mons, as well as, you lose your secondary electric resist if something happens to the Sandy Shock somewhere along the way. So definitely, I think, a little bit of a double-edged sword tearing it, but you are going to be getting a lot of advantage out of that Terra, giving you something to resist the low kicks. So overall, pretty solidly thought out.
Yeah, I think there are a couple other options for Terrapin, definitely. Like you said, having the water resist really is something that sticks out, but we'll take that for now. And one of the other interesting Terra options is going to be that Orthworm. Looks overall relatively standard. We got the leftovers. The EVs will go over in a little bit. Bold Nature, because their only attacking move here is going to be Body Press with Iron Defense to boost that +2 Body Press. Oh, very impressed. I actually was considering not bringing the Orthworm this week for quite a while, considering how passive it looked, but started doing +2 calcs, and ooh, very, very impressed with what I was seeing there. And potentially too, if we're getting in on something that is just a physical attacker, we can actually substitute up and potentially tank some hits with a substitute at +2 defense, which is really, really cute there. Potentially even the low kicks as another answer to that if I really need to, with spikes as just the last option, because really didn't like the offensive output of just about anything else. Yes, we cannot touch the Houndstone or anything that Terra Ghosts, but I think I'm willing to give that up for this really interesting set. EV's got almost max HP, a little bit of speed there, trying to speed creep some of those mons right around where we're at. And the special defense is kind of interesting here with the Terra type dragon, and make sure that uninvested Surf from Vaporeon will not break my subs. It's actually doing just less than 50% normally to me. So whenever we Terra, just under 25%, and that could let me actually stall out of Vaporeon myself here. And if it wants to pass off some wishes, okay, I'm okay with getting to +6 on body press and going to town. Especially if you're trying to pass it off to one of those physical attackers, not going to be able to break through anyways. Kind of an interesting win condition here and a different type of fighting move to set up with, Michael. What do you think?
I really like this set. Like you said, only things that resist the body press are the Houndstone and the Mesprit, and I wouldn't expect both of those to come. Mesprit, of course, is an interesting matchup because it's not the bulkiest. It's got decent bulk, but it's not got huge bulk. So if it's an offensive set, you're still probably going to do okay damage to it with that body press. And if it's a defensive set, not sure how much it's going to be doing to you, especially if you lose something like the fire weakness that you'd usually have. So I think this is a really cool set. Spikes, I think, is very fun here, but honestly, body press looks so good, I might just find myself mostly clicking sub iron defense and body press, so maybe something like heavy slam to, just cover something like the Mesprit or Houndstone, but really, I think has a surprisingly good offensive matchup here. Really cool for seeing that.
Absolutely surprised as well. But maybe the biggest surprise of the team, it's the Carbon. You already know this thing is coming. I talked it up too much to not let it come to this matchup. And oh boy, if two choice items were good, how about a third one? We're completing the trifecta, a choice scarf for Carbon with enough speed to outspeed, 0 speed, Mesprit, and below, which, if you go back and look at the speed tiers, actually covers quite a bit. With Iron Fist boosting Adamant Nature 252 attack EVs, oh boy, to Ice Hammer in close combat, just kind of clean house against the entire team. Already mentioned how spammable close combat is, and oh boy, being able to outspeed everything and just click a button seems incredible. Earthquake is neat little coverage there too, pretty spammable in a different sense than close combat, just depending on what all is left. With those three moves, I really don't need anything else. So the final potential surprise, the only immunity to fighting, is Houndstone, and with Fluffy, gives it a little bit of extra defense boost. So why not try Terra Blast Fire, which can actually two-hit KO the Fluffy bond, which because it gets half off of the damage on physical moves. We actually kind of ignore that with Fire and go back up to doing 50% to it. So neat little surprise, just in case that thing is still around. Need to catch it out. Need to do that little bit extra damage, switch out, and come back in to finish off the team. If we get Regieleki down early, say maybe that's the only fast mon, this could actually potentially outspeed the rest of the team and finish everything off. There's a little bit of chip I still need to get. This isn't 100% to chance to Oko or Saluna, for example, but if we can get just a little bit, this could actually be a late game win condition or potentially a mid game breaking condition, depending on what the situation is. Scarf and Carbonville, not ideal, but again, look how slow our teams are. We're actually jockeying it out in some of those weird speed tiers in the middle there that you don't normally get to see. So Scarf may actually have a place here on Carbonville. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. Like you said, you weren't expecting the Trick Room, so you don't need the low speed to kind of go after that. And yeah, the Scarf on Carbonville doesn't make any sense at first, but then you actually look at the matchup, and I definitely see what you were talking about as far as you actually cover a surprising number of mons with that. And certainly, the mons that you don't, he probably isn't going to bring a ton of them. The Terra Blast with the Terrifier specifically for Fluffy is wow. I don't know how you saw that. I probably wouldn't have picked it up, just gone with some other throwaway coverage move or even random useless status move. I don't know. But yeah, this thing is terrifying, and combined with the Arcanine, I think that's kind of your equivalent to, we had talked about before, the are the Noctowls going to use Trick Room? Are they going to use it early? Are they going to use it late? And it's going to be, for you, between the Arcanine and the Crabominable, which are probably your two best looking cleaners or sweepers here, what order are you going with them in? Are you going with one early, trying to break stuff? Are you saving them kind of both for the end and playing a slower game? Kind of how you play those two, I think, is going to be the biggest thing to watch out for in the match from you. And so, with that, we've gone over all of the teams, and, well, there's only one thing left to do, and that's hop into the match. Anything you have left to say before we do that?
This was very, very difficult to prep for sure. So many mons I thought were going to come from me that I thought Jimmy had the potential to bring as well that didn't end up coming. This It's tough to prep for a full team of 10 or 11 mons and then only see those 6 come up and have to change everything on the fly. I think everything will be determined here at team preview, trying to figure out where all these plans can go and how both of us adapt game plans to what the others actually brought.
And, well, here we are with the match itself. Both teams seeing what the other are bringing here. I think as far as looking at this team matchup, of course the Ursaluna and Gudra look great for the Noctowls. Low-Kick's also looking quite good here. Lurantis, interesting to see that, not sure how much it's going to do. There's no Slowking or Hippowdon or something that, that grass coverage would be super useful for. And then for them, I don't know, I'm seeing like probably just maybe lead low kicks. You're pretty happy just first impressioning or U-turning on basically anything here. For you though, man, that Crabominable looks so good here. Only fighting resist is that Mesprit, and so that thing could just go to town. Arcanine, of course, also good. I think the biggest question I had for you is, looking at this matchup, what did you think? And then how do you choose what you're going to disguise your Zoroark as?
Yeah, a couple of things here then. The fighting coverage obviously looks just amazing with only Mesprit there for sure. A little confused by the Lurantis, but pretty quickly figured out, oh, I don't actually have the best matchup into grass moves here, do I? Even if I brought Slowking and Hippowdon, would have been even worse. For the disguise process with Zoroark, I'm trying to find something ideally that doesn't give it away, and the best way that it can be given away by, of course, something like Sandstorm or something like chip damage from hazards. And having something that is also neutral to Stealth Rock actually a little tough to find on my team. We only have the Wochen and the Crabominable, and I don't know if you know this, but Wochen has that little message that pops up too, saying that Tablets of Ruin are active. So the only one I can 100% disguise myself as would be the Crabominable, which I'm actually okay with too. If Crabominable is going to be inviting in the only fighting resist, boy, would I love that to switch into a Zoroark instead, huh? So that seemed like that would make a lot of sense for me. And as for the leads, really the two that I think stand out, Mesprit for rocks potentially, and as you said, low kicks just doesn't have any real issues leading off and clicking first impression or U-turn. So with those two in mind, I think I have to go back with my original plan that I stated in the team builder.
All right, well, we're going to see how this match actually plays out now. Going off with the turn one, we do see the Wo-Chien into that low kicks like we had said, and you do just the instant Terra, eat the U-turn as Lurantis comes in, and you get that nice knocking off the heavy-duty boots. Pretty interesting turn there. You are committing your Terra early, but like you had said, that was probably the only thing you were planning on Terraing anyway, so really not that big of a deal for you. There's no Regieleki that you need the extra electric resist for, so pretty safe for you, and, well, we now see Lurantis here. Also, gives you, because you have that Rocky Helmet, you know the low kicks' item, as well as a little bit of the investment on it from that hit. So how are you feeling after this first turn?
Yeah, knowing that that is adamant with protective pads, yes, I'm able to tank those hits very well. But honestly, with protective pads, I am such a worse answer to it. I knew that was a possibility, which is why I really wanted to knock off potentially a band or protective pads immediately, hoping that it would go for first impression immediately first. But unfortunately, just makes the good play and U-turns out. But knowing that, I think Wochen isn't actually as useful as we could have expected here, too. A couple things missing there. Don't really have the ability to check the Regieleki, because obviously that's not here either. The Houndstone would have liked to have this to be able to taunt or knock that off as well. So with all that said, I don't actually know how useful Wochen's going to be anymore. So just getting maybe a little bit of chip onto this or something else, hopefully you can switch out, maybe get another knock onto something. That's really what I'm looking at the Wochen from now on. Those pads are really limiting its usefulness.
Sure. And so we're going to see over here, you go off with the taunt into Lurantis as he's just going to start stacking up those Leaf Storm bonuses. I think the taunt was pretty interesting over, doing something like switching into something else, like the Arcanine to immediately threaten this. Although certainly it's only neutral to the Leaf Storm and doesn't want to take too much damage. Was the taunt, trying to cover maybe something like a substitute?
Just basically anything miscellaneous that could be coming. Taunt, I think, if he was going to double out as well, would have covered anything coming in. Maybe a Vaporeon trying to anticipate something happening. Taunt just kind of a regular catch-all. Not too overly concerned with making sure I get this down as quickly as possible. It's just catching anything that I may not have been seeing. It seemed like a decent option at the time, at least. Yes, Arcanine probably could have been a good idea, but then we're inviting in Vaporeon too. I'm okay with the taunt.
Sure. Then, like we said, Ruination's so nice as you're going to be taking a bunch of damage from Leaf Storm, but you have this thing easily within revenge range from a ton of stuff, and you said Wo-Chien not nearly as useful as you thought it was going to be. So I think, pretty solid here, and yeah, once that thing got up one Leaf Storm, I think you really needed to cut your losses on the Wo-Chien here, and luckily that Ruination hit.
Exactly, yeah. And if we can get one more hit off too, it's actually going to be in range of extreme speed as well, because I did see that this is very physically defensive. So getting just a little bit more chip, either force him to use it as a sack or potentially have Arcanine pick that up for easily later, is fine by me.
And we are going to see Ruination again bringing it low. Leaf Storm, they're getting the KO and Taunt wearing off, bringing in the Crab. But spoiler alert, Vaporeon comes in, and that's no Crab. Crabs don't have Flamethrower. Pretty fun there, interaction. Surprised, a little bit surprised to see him save the, Lurantis, with such low HP, maybe trying to, wish it back up with this Vaporeon, as well as just kind of scouting for what the Crab wants to do. But a little bit of a bold switch, I think, here into the Vaporeon, because it would have taken about half from a close combat.
Yeah,
So
that's why I went with Flamethrower too. I thought that was a pretty good in between, just in case something else could have been coming in, like the Mesprit. Still get damage on that, while not inviting Ursaluna in for free the turn after. If I were to go for Shadow Ball, it seemed like the right in between play, but boy, did Jimmy just end up, intentionally or not, reading me like a book.
yeah, and of course now he knows that the Zoroark is going to be disguised as that Crabominable. Might have a harder time catching something like the Mesprit with the Shadow Ball, but Crab is such a threat as we had gone over before. I'm not sure he's going to have a whole lot of choices as for what he wants to switch into an apparent Crab as the match goes on. We are going to see you switch out, though, into the Sandy Shocks, take huge damage from a Surf, but honestly, you had no Surf switch-ins, and no particularly specially defensive mons, except that Arcanine's kind of random special defense investment, who obviously doesn't want to take Surf. So a little bit of an unfortunate situation you found yourself in. But Sandy Shocks, not the bulkiest mon anyway. You were always living that uninvested Surf, and of course now you are in a pretty good spot with the potential Volt Switch, or whatever other move you want to choose here. But what was it like seeing that of Vaporeon and knowing that you just kind of have to take a Surf on something?
Yeah, pretty much that. Not only was Flamethrower punished hard by Vaporeon coming in, it also set up the Surf for the next turn. Yeah, I could switch in the Crab, but actually Crab has a little bit of defensive utility. Didn't really touch on it, but that's actually looking like one of my better low kicks answers, strangely enough. If it doesn't have Axe Kick, which we now know that it does not, it's actually looking pretty nice there too. I actually do want to save a little bit of HP on that. Like I said, I would like to get into a good position with being able to spam around the Volt Switch. Another reason why I didn't end up going Specs is because I wanted to be able to Earth Power following up after Ursaluna potentially switches in on that. Just get a little bit of chip on that. So I'm okay with just clicking Volt Switch, and if Ursaluna does happen to come in, we'll get the chip. And if we get a little bit of chip here and there, we're actually starting to build up towards one of a couple potential end games.
Sure. And he's going to go into Lurantis kind of as a mid-ground play here, as you do go for that Volt Switch into your Orthworm. Lurantis maybe just coming in as a sack, but it lives on 1%, and I did the calcs. We actually have to look at the exact HP values to see if Volt Switch could have killed with a max roll there. It did 19.8% max, so have to see exactly what that 20% equated out to be to see if it could have KO'd. And then you go out into the Orthworm, which I think is a little bit interesting. But I mean, you resist Leaf Storm from this thing. You can potentially set up as far as, going out instead to something like the Arcanine, which of course is scary, or maybe something like the Zoroark. But, with your choice items on 3 of your 4 other Mons, just picking up an easy KO with one of those and then being locked into something would be pretty scary.
Exactly that, yeah. And actually, this is about the time where I kind of realized fighting moves are incredibly spammable here. It may seem a little bit early to go for it, but I'm thinking about setting up here a little bit and seeing what Orthworms can do in what looks like a situation where I am very far behind.
And you are going to set up that iron defense, but he brings out the synthesis crazy. I would definitely not have expected synthesis on the Lurantis. I mean, sure, it gets it. Sure, it saw it was a defensive set, but I'm pretty sure I see that come out as a sack, and I think, oh, well, he's just trying to get Leaf Storm on me. Maybe you take about 25% from that Leaf Storm, and which would be a pretty safe iron defense there. But no, he actually gets a nice play there. And then I guess I'll just finish out this turn. He goes out into the Vaporeon now that it is healthy, who takes pretty decent damage from the body press, but is of course defensive here.
Yeah, that's actually a mineral there on that body press. Yeah, a little surprised to see synthesis one for the body press because I wanted to make sure it couldn't just keep synthesizing up or do something silly like Leaf Storm and then suddenly get a ton of damage off. And I need to body press it twice to KO it. So I thought that was relatively safe. Thought he may have switched out there instead of synthesis as well, saving that as a sack later for Sandy Shocks. But seeing Vaporeon in, boy, do I really love getting damage in on this thing. Of course, I'm scared of Wish here. But just getting off some good body press damage, confirming that it is full physical defense as well, is a good thing here too. Well, let's see how far Orthworm can get in breaking the 1 or 2 things that I really need it to break.
Yeah. So we're going to see Body Press come out again, do closer to a high roll as he reveals the haze there, which, is going to, I think was, probably he was most worried about you stacking an additional iron defense up there, in which case the haze would have been really nice clearing both of those while he was still getting a little more lefty's HP. So, but you're doing pretty good here, honestly.
I've body pressed there because I was worried of a wish that could come out if I were to set up another body press or a sub. He could get back up to full health pretty easily there. Did not want that to happen, so just getting off another hit there, and with a very mineral and a very max roll, we see just about the exact range that both of us are at this point. We'll see.
But you are going to set another Iron Defense as he goes for a Surf, probably just expecting to be KO'd there by another Body Press. So that's nice. You're going to end up potentially having an extra Iron Defense up going, into looking to KO this Vaporeon next turn. And well, you resist a lot of stuff you resist the Draco from the Gudra at least. You've got the Iron Defense for the Ursaluna and the Low Kicks. Lurantis, you resist the initial Leaf Storm. Mesprit, we don't really know anything about, but honestly, not the worst situation to see your Orthworm in there with a decent amount of health and that defense boost.
Yeah, this was pretty much me saying, pick something to sacrifice to me, or let me get chip off on both the Vaporeon and the Mesprit here for sure. Yes, it could have been nice to claim the KO on Vaporeon. Didn't think he would let me have it that easily, so another Iron Defense to get a stronger body press to whatever was coming in next, I thought was probably a little bit better deal there.
Yep. And well, you certainly don't want to risk taking another Surf, so you're going to go for the body press here, and that lets the Mesprit come in. We do see it's got a fair amount of bulk there now, but this is a pretty interesting turn here because we from going through the preview know what this Mesprit does, but in the match, kind of what are you thinking that this Mesprit might want to do here?
Yeah, I see Orthworm as being very, very good right now. Boy was able to set up Iron Defense and chip down the one thing I was worried about. So what could possibly go wrong with this? Obviously, this isn't going I don't think this is going to be doing a super strong attack. We saw there was max HP investment, but I thought there was a potential here for something like a trick, going for something like Choice Specs or Choice Scarf coming out this turn. That would be the one thing that could really cripple my Orthworm. And the worst case scenario here, I think I could get the Orthworm in again later. It took a little bit of damage, but not that much. I can get this in on a free switch later. So trying to absorb a potential trick as the worst case scenario is my plan here.
the trick. That makes a lot of sense because we're going to see you switch into at least what appears to be a Crabominable as he goes for the Trick Room. Of course, we're going to find out that that's no Crab, that's a Zoroark again, who of course would not mind getting a Choice Scarf or another pair of Choice Specs at all. Crab obviously wouldn't have wanted to take something like a Mystical Fire if that had been aimed at the Earthworm. But he goes for the Trick Room and then the U-turn out here into the Goodra. Pretty interesting. See, we're gonna see that you do throw out the low kick though, expecting one of the Trick Room answers to come in, and you do absolutely huge damage to that thing. Definitely putting a huge chunk in that for the rest of your team to take advantage. What did you think about kind of seeing the Trick Room come out?
I admittedly just started rolling my eyes. Are you kidding me? You brought Trick Room? Don't you see how slow my team is? Why are you doing that? It makes some sense, of course, but oh man, that's maybe the worst thing I could see because I outspeed so much of his team. I think I ended up winning a lot of the speed EV wars here, but maybe that was purposeful because he has the Trick Room, and now I'm starting to kick myself a little bit. Luckily, though, with going into Zoroark, I am pretty proud of making that correct play there, too. I did think he was going to end up going for U-turn this turn, outspeeding me within Trick Room. And so with that being the safe option, I thought low kick would definitely be the right play there. U-turn, reveal the illusion, aha, I'm going to get you now. Go out into one of these things. But in fact, I got you. And I got a good bit of chunk damage off onto the Goodra. Pretty happy about that. But really, what are my safe switch-ins to the Goodra? Not sure, and we'll see if maybe even that U-turn crit mattered.
Yeah, so I think that U-turn was really interesting to me. Of course, it preserves the Mesprit to uh, go and potentially set it up later. But was the Healing Wish was another real option there. I think looking at the turn order would still reveal to him whether or not this was the real Crabominable or the Zoroark, and then you get to bring in Ursaluna or Goodra completely healthy. But you then lose the Mesprit as far as setting up rocks later or setting up a second round of Trick Room. So I do think it was interesting for him to go to preserve the Mesprit instead of kind of going all in on this is going to be his, big Trick Room instance. We are going to see, though, that you really don't have a Draco Meteor switch in here, and that was easily going to pick up the KO. Nothing mattering about the crit there. You even with the crit though, it's pretty interesting that Draco was the only thing that was actually going to KO you there. So he was forced to go for that a little bit as opposed to one of the coverage options. But huge KO. But now you've got Orthworm in threatening big body press, and of course the Goodra has weakened special attack. So
Oh,
not all in all the worst situation to be in.
I was a bit worried about something like Flash Cannon coming out and maybe putting me in range of something like Flash Cannon that wouldn't lower its special attack, but knowing I was just out of range of those coverage moves is very comforting to hear there too. And yeah, I think this is a perfect opportunity to get Orthworm back in. I think we can manipulate the terms of Trick Room left pretty well here too and start setting up again now that we have a better idea of what the Mesprit is and get rid of this Trick Room, please.
Yeah, I think that is also another thing you mentioned about kind of getting information on the Mesprit is seeing not only that it has, Trick Room is probably going to be leaning more support, but did it click something like Mystical Fire or whatever against like the Orthworm or the potential Crabominable is letting you think that maybe it really doesn't have a lot to touch your team at this point, which really makes the fighting moves all that much better if it doesn't have a whole lot of ways to hit back. But we're gonna see what goes in what happens in this Trick Room here. Draco Meteor not doing too much as you get the safe Iron Defense there. It's got the weakened Special Defense. You don't know if it has any coverage moves to hit you, but you're stalling out Trick Room here and getting some defense boosts while you're at it. So probably pretty happy with how this is going.
Absolutely. Not too worried about what it was going to do there. Seeing it do even less than substitute damage, though, I think we've got a good idea of what to do here in the last turn of Trick Room.
Absolutely. Trick Room is about to run out. He goes out to the Mesprit as you substitute. Uh, Mesprit here now, with the Trick Room gone, could set it up again, but you've got that sub, and we just said fighting great into anything that's not this Mesprit. So you're doing pretty great here. If he had even stayed in, like we were saying, the sub isn't going to be broken with that all that special attack drop, and with the Trick Room gone, you would have outsped and been able to KO well behind a sub. So really, really great play from you there, and we'll have to see what the Noctowls try to do with this Mesprit again.
Yeah, with Mesprit, my main goal here is saying I think the second Trick Room is going to determine a lot here. So I want to make sure this doesn't at least doesn't get up a third Trick Room or put it in range to make sure that it can't get up a third Trick Room. I assume that's what it's going to be going for here. See how much damage I can wreck during the second Trick Room. How much can I stall out the second Trick Room while making sure this can't get up a third? I think Orthworm's actually in a really good position to do that.
Yeah. And so we're going to see Body Press actually outspeeding because he did go for the Trick Room again. Pretty interesting. He's just going to commit to the Trick Room again while this Orthworm is doing its thing. And again, probably indicating that the Mesprit can't really do anything to it. Uh, what do you think about the Trick Room going back up?
Inevitable, probably. Again, just trying to get Chip onto this to make sure it doesn't happen a third time. If you want to go out into something else, please be my guest. Sack that instead. But I'm pretty convinced this cannot touch Orthworm, and I am safe behind this sub for now.
Yep, so you go for another body press, bring it real low as here comes the healing wish. And actually brings up that Vaporeon back to full, bringing up the wall rather than something like the Gudra. I think a pretty good move here. Like we said, that body press and being behind a sub really matches up pretty well into really anything else on the team here. Getting this Vaporeon back to full Surf, of course, going to be able to do decently against the substitutes, as well as, if you switch at some point, he at least has a Flare Blitz switch in still compared to how low the Vaporeon was before.
Absolutely. And Ursulin is about the last thing after this Vaporeon that I need chipped down. So, and what I said was a pivotal second time through Trick Room. And what is the final time through Trick Room? I really want to get this low because as soon as this is low, we can go to the races.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see Surf does break the sub, but Body Press, another high roll, doing almost half. And here, what are you thinking here? You don't really have any Surf switch-ins, so I assume you're just trying to kind of get whatever damage off you can here.
Exactly. I need this low so desperately, and I really do not want this to be wishing up and wishing in front of me too much. If I can force him to play offense, which would force this Vaporeon to stay low, then I'm all for it. And the best way to do that is to just keep clicking body press.
Yeah, and you're also stalling at the Trick Room while you're doing it. Surf needs a high roll to KO there, roughly 25% chance by my estimation, doesn't get it. And Orthworm putting in so much work, looking at probably going down here next turn, but that Healing Wish, Vaporeon's back down to where it was before. Plenty of chip, anything could finish it off at this point, as well as, that Trick Room being close to over again. Really, really impressed with how Orthworm has done here.
This could potentially be saved for a little bit later, potentially as a sack to low kicks, or potentially even coming in after, say, Gudra or Ursulina gets a KO and come into body press again. I really don't see another opportunity for me to get up iron defenses. At this point, I'd rather see if Jimmy gets cheeky with a wish or something and keep him honest.
Sure. Surf will pick up the KO there. As Trick Room ends and bringing out the Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks, I think, was pretty interesting. Earth Power is, of course, free here with that Levitator gone, but so would Arcanine or Crabominable clicking Close Combat. Neither of them guaranteed Oko's Ursaluna, and of course you'd need to watch out for low kicks with defenses lowered. But my, kind of first thought is, send out like Crab, start spamming CC, and then sack shocks when low kicks potentially comes out to try to clean. And then, or to get the KO, and then you just kind of clean with Arcanine. What was your plan here with the Sandy Shocks?
Yeah, number one thing is during that last exchange with Orthworm and Vaporeon, of course, I had to make peace with the fact that Orthworm was not going to be sweeping this game, as funny as that would be, but that Crabominable was going to be the one to do it instead. And what stands in its way? Really, the number one thing, it's still a roll on that Ursaluna, and I would love to try and force that out. If I click Volt Switch here, which seems like it could be pretty obvious, maybe try and bait out the Ursaluna and let this go down with Earth powering the Ursaluna and then try and sweep from there with Ursaluna, a little more guaranteed range there for the close combat from Crab.
Gotcha. All checks out. You do make the risky Volt Switch play, but he doesn't go into Ursaluna, and you do get the Crab out as he sends out the Lurantis. Honestly, you think letting the Vaporeon, go down to there to the Volt Switch, is bad. But as you were saying, probably honestly better for him preserving the HP on the Ursaluna and the Gudra a little bit. Um,
And potentially worried too after seeing his team afterwards. Boy, would a Terra Ground have been just the worst for me there, wouldn't it?
oh
Wouldn't
my
even
gosh.
gotten a chip onto anything, gotten a little bit healthier. Ooh, thank goodness that didn't happen.
Uh-huh. And so now we have the Crabominable out here, and he sees the Crabominable, but goes out to into Lurantis. Pretty interesting. He doesn't have anything that OHKOs the crab, so he's going to need chip, but he is risking being outsped by a slightly fast crab. I think it'd be interesting, something maybe a little more consistent, something like low kicks U-turning into the Lurantis sack could have potentially been better. What do you think about the Lurantis here?
Yeah, as soon as Laurentis came out on his free switch there, because I volt switched out, I had to pick Crab as the thing to come in, and he chose Laurentis. And racing through my mind, thinking, why would he do that? The answer I settled on was this has to be Terra right here and now. What is most likely going to Terra? Ice Hammer and Close Combat do KO this, and both are very spammable. Check out some Ice Hammer calcs. Sheesh, that move is ridiculous. But either one could potentially not necessarily close out the game, but ice hammer one or two times depending on speeds here into a sack coming back into it. So which move do I need to go for here? It's presenting itself as a grass type, so maybe ice hammer would be more intuitive, but close combat hits absolutely everything. And most importantly, what is the terra type he's going to go with? I concluded I don't think this is going to be a terra type that resists fighting, so don't overthink it. Go for the fighting move.
Yeah. And we're going to see that pay off big time as he does Terra Water, trying to eat an Ice Hammer and hit back. But you are also revealing a bit of speed here. But, we're not revealing the Scarf yet. You could have just outsped with some speed investment. But still full health, even though you've got a couple defenses dropped. And now we see the Gudra come out here. And you must be feeling pretty nice about the situation with your scarf still hidden.
Absolutely. And whenever someone brings in something, just to have it go down without getting anything at all, that is such a good feeling. It feels like a turning point in a match. And I've been behind just about this whole time, but one more close combat, and I'm actually on top for the first time.
Yup. And we are going to see Crab is actually fast, but the interesting thing is this actually still doesn't confirm the choice scarf. At this point in the match, doesn't really matter, but I do think it's fun that you could have outsped both of those Mons, but now you see the low kicks coming out here. Um, it's interesting that, it could force a switch with a potential fighting move, but you figure he would have just done that initially. So what are you kind of thinking here with the Crabominable against this low kicks?
I've got -2 defense, and actually from this range, there is a chance that first impression OHKOs me, which is crazy because I'm a resist. He doesn't have a boosting item or anything. It's time to let Sandy Shocks go for sure here. I think this is an easy first impression from him, or if not, Axe Kick. And either way, I'm not letting this take that.
All right. Forcing the switch into that Sandy Shocks. First impression, like you said, was a about 25% chance to KO by my estimation, but we'll just sack the Sandy Shocks. And now we've got basically the four brawlers of the team. We've got Low Kicks and Ursaluna up against Crabominable and Arcanine. This match is going to be over pretty soon because all of these things hit like a truck.
For my estimation here, I have two moves that I can make here. My first option is to Flare Blitz. Obviously, this thing would go down to a Flare Blitz. It's a bug type. It's real easy. If he switches out to Ursaluna, I would love that chip damage. The thing in the back of my mind, though, is that I put all of my extra EVs into special defense and not physical defense. If Axe Kick is around, that can get a high roll and just kind of kill me, which I really don't like that idea. So I want to make sure I got at least a little bit of chip damage onto this if I need to, just to make sure that close combat would KO this. I thought if there was a potential for a roll there if I was to just click close combat a couple more times. So to guarantee I get some chip, and if he just goes for something silly, I can at least get a little bit of chip at the turn after by going for extreme speed here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's definitely an awkward turn. We'll see you do go for the extreme speed, get a nice crit. Crit couldn't have KO'd though, but you do outspeed or out prioritize that sucker punch, which is very cool. But it is an interesting turn because you were really just kind of calling the 50-50 on whether he had Axe Kick there. If he didn't, Flare Blitz just won you the game there, KOing the low kick, surviving, and then getting the chip you needed on the Ursaluna for the Crabominable to finish off the game. But you went for the extreme speed, critical hit, nice, but as we said, couldn't KO, but you are in a little bit more of an awkward position with that potential Ursaluna coming in eventually.
For sure. Next turn, pretty straightforward. We're just going to extreme speed one more time and finish off low kicks. It's the turn after that's going to be very interesting.
Yep. E-Speed goes out there, picks up the KO, and now it's Ursaluna, Arcanine, and Crabominable, the three absolute titans of physical damage in this match. And you've got, you're locked into extreme speed here. Not going to be doing too much to the Ursaluna. I think you're doing around a quarter, if I recall. But of course you can't, just start freely, taking hits on, making, bad switches here. So what's your mindset here?
Yeah, so I think this was definitely my big fault in the match. I pretty quickly said, oh, if I get a little bit of chip on this, Crabominable will KO with close combat. So that seems pretty easy and straightforward. The other thing, though, I need to consider is that Crab actually wouldn't really die to anything that he's doing. I don't think he's going for Hammer Arm this turn. If anything, it would probably be an Earthquake from even what my limited mindset was at that moment. So even just switching in Crab here could have been real nice. I'd be risking a crit, which is something you kind of have to do at times. But I think I pretty hastily clicked extreme speed a second time here without really considering my options.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because yeah, the big thing is that he doesn't have the guts boost yet. Flame Orb has not had a chance to activate, and so he doesn't have that attack boost, meaning that yeah, Crab is actually going to be living some hits here. So you really just, it is a hard call to make on all of these. Both of you are pretty much in waiting to see who overpredicts. And we're going to see that you stay in, go for the E-Speed, does do a little over a quarter, but he has the bulk up, and oh, this is getting even scarier, as now he does get the Flame Orb boost as well. Um, I think he knew that you were banded. Going for the bulk up, actually just a great play, pretty solid play overall. He would have the defense boost if he switched into Abominable, but between that going for CC and Arcanine going for CC, even with the defense boost, probably would have gone down. So it's real awkward. You kind of had to make the hard call on if you're expecting Flame Orb or something like a Choice Band, which would have made switching to the Crab risky. Maybe even something like a Substitute coming out. So I did not envy your position here.
And if we thought that was bad, how about another 50-50 right after that? If I go stay in extreme speed one more time, if he takes me out, Crab is strong. Of course, it's going to KO with close combat when it's just at +1 defense. But if he bulks up again, we're starting to get in a little bit of a weird situation here, too. So very awkward 50-50. Do I stay and get a little bit more chip to make sure Crab can take it out? Or do I need to switch into Crab now to make sure I can get multiple fighting moves off whenever it has +2 defense if it decides to bulk up a second time?
It is true. If he bulks up here, switching to the Crab wins you the game. If he doesn't, staying in wins. So you have to make that 50-50, and we're going to see you do switch, but no bulk up. The Hammer Arm being super effective on both the remaining Mons, getting the KO there. And then Arcanine close but no cigar. Ursaluna had 66% left. Close Combat did 64.4% max, meaning that the Noctowls are going to take it by the skin of their teeth. One extra turn of burn chip away from Ursaluna going down as well. That was about as close a match as you can have. Incredibly well played by both coaches. Um, Especially like you said, you were definitely probably getting the worst end of the trades early on, but clawing it back to a very close finish, 50-50 there to win or lose the game. What do you have to say about this match? Because it was just all around amazing.
It is always such a treasure to be able to play against Jimmy. It's so fun to see the quality of the league overall coming up. It feels like I have one of these matches every single season, which is so fun. Shout out to Jimmy for being an awesome competitor, as always, man. Our matches are so good. Outread me a couple times, I outread him a couple times. I know there are some coaches that are approaching us, but it's still so tough to say that it's anything but us at 1 and 2. I had such a blast with this, man. Continued success on to Jimmy. Well earned W here in what is maybe your easiest decision of match of the week in quite a while. This was so fun.
Oh, definitely. And it's always good, the, kind of learning opportunity, seeing, like you said, kind of the two big pillars of performance in the league. Uh, Look at how, again, how close it was, and how much HP management on various Pokemon throughout the game, affects the outcome. Knowing exactly what you need to keep alive. Of course, the Noctowl is doing a bit more of that, with the bulk of the the healing wish, the synthesis on the Lurantis, managing that a little bit more than you had to, but really you kept in mind kind of exactly what your win conditions are, and what you needed to get chip on, which is, especially for less experienced coaches, hard to keep track of throughout a long intense match like this. So excellently played by both coaches here, and thanks again just for providing such a good match to go over. But with that, that's going to be about it from us. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that stuff that YouTube loves you to do. Nate, thanks again for joining me here. Any last words to say about this battle?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. It's always a blast to super dive into some of these matches. You do a great job picking probably the best matches each week, and there's so much to learn from these. Even stuff that we didn't really go over too super in depth here. Like you said, a lot to learn from this match. Definitely something you could go through over and over again and find something, some little nuance here or there that maybe we could have done better. Or wow, that Jimmy ended up doing that perfectly, and that's what won him the match. Just small things here and there. So it's so much fun. I'm glad the Wooper Club League is thriving as always.
Oh, absolutely. And in this hectic season, seeing coaches put together teams that, even again, looking at these two teams here, maybe the what the Noctows brought looks a little more standard, but seeing all of these wacky Pokemon shine in weird instances, a real treat of this season. Thank you again so much to all of you watching, sitting through this video. It always gets a bit lengthy when the two of us are both here to go over a match. So thank you for sitting through all that, and, well, see you next time for another feature match.